All right, good afternoon, everyone. Sadly, we stand here today to discuss another school shooting. I'm very thankful. This came out at 12:36 today. Our Department of Emergency Services Dispatch Center took calls for what was possibly an active shooter incident. Thankfully, that was not the case, but we did have a shooting that took place in the school. One suspect, one victim. At 12:36 again was the initial call. There was the SRO assigned to the school who was in the school who did not hear the shot. As the principal, I apologize, the principal of the school also was in the school at the time, did not hear the shot, but heard the commotion that resulted from it. Both the principal and our SRO responded to the scene. Nurses, the shooting took place in a first floor men's bathroom. After the initial shooting, the suspect left the bathroom, left the school. Other individuals in the school brought the victim out into the hallway where he was immediately attended to by nurses as part of the public school system. Within the first 2 minutes, we had our first response deputy on the scene. Within 15 minutes, more than 100 police officers were here from all of our local partner agencies, Bel Air, Aberdeen, Havre Grace, the Maryland State Police, as well as Transportation Authority, and I know I'm going to miss somebody. Baltimore County Police sent units up into the county. ATF is here. I've received calls from other jurisdictions offering their support. The medics from Department of Emergency Services were here in a matter of minutes as well. Immediately attended to the patient who was airlifted to a trauma center. Again, he is the victim in this shooting is a 15-year-old male who is in serious condition. Last we heard, the suspect in the case, thanks to our community members, the suspect in our case was apprehended within minutes. He's a 16-year-old student at the school. This was his first day, although we're 4 days into the school year. This was his first day in the school, and this altercation apparently took place in the bathroom that resulted in a single shot, what we believe to be a single shot being fired, which struck the victim. He went a short distance away to some houses. They also called the police, called dispatch. Information was given to responding deputies who were able to encounter him very quickly and make an arrest. With our criminal-friendly legislature here in Maryland, this is a 16-year-old suspect that we are now not allowed to talk to. So as far as trying to give some information, our detectives to get information about the questions I have, that all of our partners behind me have, as to why we're not allowed to ask the suspect in this case. We've talked to the state's attorney. We do have sufficient information that he will be charged in association with this shooting without the need to be interviewed. Overwhelming evidence, if you will. But again, that investigation is ongoing. I'm very thankful again for the quick response of our deputies, of all of our officers and the troopers in the county, all of our allied partners, all the officer assistants, the Department of Emergency Services, the great work at Dispatch Center. I know Rick Ayers is with us, the Director of DES, County Executive is with us. I can't introduce everybody, but again, a tragic day, 4 days into the school year. We're all familiar with the horrible shooting that took 4 lives in Georgia just a couple of days ago, and here we stand in Harford County with a school shooting. That's about as much investigative information as I'm going to release at this point. It's early on. We have so many of our partners working with us. I'm joined by Dr. Bolson. I can't undersell his staff and what they did. Again, the principal and the nurse attending to this victim right away, hopefully giving him a good chance to survive this event, I pray. Dr. Bolson, did you want to say anything?
Thank you, Sheriff. So I would like to start by thanking all of these first responders. I pulled up to the school to see just a sea of lights and people doing their jobs on behalf of our students in this community. So thank you so much for that. Also to know that, our hearts are breaking for the victim and this victim's family. The circumstances are absolutely terrible, and this should not be happening in schools. I also want to thank our parents for their patience. You know, when an incident happens, our job first is to secure the students and make sure that when we do release them back to their families, that we're doing it as carefully and we're keeping as much track of everybody as we possibly can. So for anyone who still isn't aware, you know, the reunification site is at Good Shepherd Presbyterian Church just up the road here. That process is working. We've had families going through and being reunified with their children at this time. Again, thank you to this entire community, all of the first responders. Thank you so much. I want to say on behalf of my staff, thank you to them. They did the job. Unfortunately, we prepare for things like this, but it's never the same as when it actually happens. And so, you know, we're you know, just devastated to be a part of this awful group of schools that have experienced things like this. And we're going to do everything we can, working with this community to make sure this absolutely never happens again.
And with that, and yes, as Dr. Bolson said, the reunification effort between the parents is going on. I'm going to take some questions for anyone here, but we're going to be limited on what we are willing to offer.
I understand that, Sheriff. Thank you. You recover a weapon. What type of weapon? How do you get it in the school? And do you know why this happened?
At this point in time, the firearm has not been recovered. But other than that, yes, we have an idea of what kind of weapon, but I'm not going to go into any other investigative details at this time.
Do you know what the argument was about? Or what led to the shooting?
We have no idea. And again, you know, I hope my frustration is clear that this legislature has handcuffed police. There are families of every other student in that school and the parents of the shooter who have a right to know why we all stand here today and why there's a person who has been shot in one of our schools, and we are not allowed to ask the person who committed that act because of this crazy legislature we have in this state.
Can you, final for me, can you tell us how he got the gun in school? Was it in a backpack, a pocket?
We do not know at this point in time, and hopefully the easiest way to find that out would be to ask the suspect, but we don't get to go that way. So hopefully the investigation, as we again continue to work the investigative side of this, we have a ton of investigators on scene. I would probably undersell if I tried to give you a number, but our investigators will work this case diligently with our partners and hopefully come up with those answers.
Does the school have metal detectors?
Does not.
Does not.
Were there any prior warnings or inklings of a dispute that was brewing before this?
There was an incident involving some Joppatowne High School students yesterday. I have not heard that that event is related to this event in any way, but I don't want to appear to be lying, you know, giving you false information that we later find out those two incidents were tied together. The answer right now is not that we're familiar with.
So, Sheriff, you talked about the laws, and especially when it comes to juveniles, and you said this was his first day in school, even though school started 4 days ago. With those laws, are you able to determine why he showed up to school today? How frustrated are you with that?
I don't know if that's a normal thing. Obviously, the normal thing is to show up on the first day of school, but I think I'd have to defer to Dr. Bolson whether that's like out of the norm for some of our students in some of our schools.
I mean, we have first week of school, we have students who show up. I mean, most of our students show up on the first day as they should, but in some cases that doesn't always happen. So we do see students coming to us, enrolling with us, maybe coming from other places, not clear on when we were starting, but we'd have to look into the specifics of this case.
Sheriff, this is for you. Back to the laws. You said the gun hasn't been found yet.
Correct.
I guess that's part of the investigation that your deputies can't do, right? Is that frustrating for this investigation?
Oh, absolutely. And you know we don't have it, so unless it was dropped in the school or somewhere between the point he was picked up, or was it given to another, you know, we have no idea. And again, the easiest way to get that answer is we have a person who we're going to be charging as an adult for committing a heinous crime in a school, and we're not allowed to talk to him. That is lunacy.
Superintendent, as far as when Monday rolls around, is school expected to resume? What are the plans? Is there counseling for students who went through all this?
There will definitely be counseling. In terms of opening and sort of re-entering the school, we haven't sorted that out yet. We want to make sure our students are able to get back with their families. Once we have that taken care of, we'll start working on the next steps for getting school open and returning to business as usual.
Dr. Bolson, you said school was prepared for something like this. Can you tell us the extent of that preparation and how much of it played a role in this incident?
Of course. We prepare for all emergency incidents, whether, I mean, things we've seen going on around the country or other types of emergencies. And so, you know, our schools, our staff is all trained in active shooter. In this case, this incident, I think, occurred around the time of right after a class change. So there's usually a lot of students moving around. But even in terms of, what's our response? The reunification is one of the hardest parts of any significant issue like this whenever you have a crisis in a school. And so knowing that we had the teams ready to roll to Joppatowne to set up the reunification, we had all the, the lists of students in the schools and things like that. So the reunification is a big part. So I don't know if there's more to that I didn't answer for you.
And I'll just say from the law enforcement side, we train routinely with our allied partners in the county, and sadly this isn't our first horrible event that we've had in the county. But again, to have the ability to have two police, not only an SRO in the school, but the initial responding deputy there within 2 minutes, and over 100 police officers, because of the great policing that is here in our county and our surrounding jurisdictions, which responded with our state and federal partners, to have over 100 police officers on the scene. Very thankful that this was not an active shooter incident, but it showed our response as if it was one is ready, and I pray we never have to test that system.
Sheriff, do you know how many times this victim was shot and where, and how many, did he recovered any, ballistics, how many times his gun was fired?
I do know that we do believe just one round was fired, which struck from the suspect that struck the victim. I do not know as far as what has been recovered.
Can you go into more detail about the community's assistance in capturing the suspect?
There were calls back to 911 center, which is the county answering point for 911 calls. So there were calls into the center indicating that this person was over near the school in the community banging on doors, and that response over there is what led to his being quickly brought into custody.
Sheriff, given what happened in Georgia just a few days ago, what's your message to the men and women that showed up that got this under control quickly?
Oh, I couldn't be more proud, and I get to say that routinely, that about the men and women of not just the sheriff's office, but of our partners. We are blessed here in Harford County. We are blessed in our surrounding jurisdictions to have police officers who are well trained, who are ready to go in and attack a threat. We saw in Parkland, sadly, years ago, what it cost not to respond indirectly. And I listened to the radio traffic, as many people here behind, as this event was unfolding, and just the professionalism of how they set up incident command, unified command with our public safety partners at DES, fire, and EMS. It just, the system worked, and it worked in this instance. It is, again, the sad part is that we're discussing a school shooting at all.
Sir, I know it was a juvenile, you haven't had a chance to talk, but since you know who he is, does he have a juvenile record that you can speak to?
I don't know. I know that he's not unknown to us, but I don't know whether that means he has a juvenile record or just we've had calls for service that have involved him in the past. I do know that. Anybody, anything else?
What's your message to parents moving forward, whether you or the superintendent? There's a lot of tense moments, a lot of trauma today. Just what's your message to those people in that school community?
Well, from the sheriff's office standpoint, I'd like the message to be that we're going to do our very best to keep our students safe in schools. It's a shame that we have supported some legislation in the past that hasn't. This is from my personal opinion, that hasn't worked to make our schools safe, hasn't been passed that would have, in my opinion, worked to make the schools safer. But we're ready to respond in times of need. But we need parents to know what these young people are doing. And we all have the question, why is a 16-year-old, just in case the person in Georgia was 14 or 15, and his dad just was charged for allowing him access or having that weapon. What is the deal with this? That's something the investigators will be looking at. How did he get his hands on this gun? But that is where the problem lies, and we're going to continue to do our very best to keep our community safe by following those leads out to the end. But we need parents to actually be parents in many situations and know what their children are up to.
Just going back when you said there was previous calls for service, can you elaborate on the nature of those? Was it school or home?
It did not involve the school as far as I know, but I just know just a very little bit about it, so I don't feel comfortable just that he was not unknown to us. Dr. Bolton, you want to answer?
From my perspective, I know there's going to be many questions from our community. People will want to process this, and they'll be looking to help us find even better solutions for safety. So we will by next week be putting out, a schedule of times when people can engage with us, how they might be able to engage with us to work through processing what happened, and I would ask people just keep an eye on the messaging that we're sending out. We send a lot of information out for parents, but also for the entire community, and we'd ask that the people engage with us in that. We'll be sure to reach out and process this with them, because I know there will be a lot of questions.
And with that, we're going to wrap it up. I do want to again thank all of our first responders who did such a great job today, didn't hesitate when response was needed. And also community, I know that when you're responding and you hear that there was a shooting in your son or daughter's school, and you're responding and you're trying to be reunified, there were a couple times where tensions got high and people got impatient. And I think through the school system with DES and ourselves, we did our best to facilitate that, and appreciate the community's support and cooperation as this process is ongoing. Thank you very much.